We'll begin tonight from Abuja, where the federal government today warned purveyors of fake news about COVID-19 that it will come after them. The Minister of Information, Alhaji Lai Mohammed, says the intention is to discredit the government and the efforts of health workers at the front lines, helping to treat victims of the virus.
They want to destroy the fight against COVID-19. They want to destroy the government. And it's so sad that otherwise intelligent people believe them. Like they say, once there's poverty, the first casualty is integrity. Now, we're also documenting this fake news. We're investigating the websites. We're also investigating the proponents. And I can share this with you that when we traced those websites, we traced them to people who have a pathological hatred to this government. We traced that to people who have hosted their website outside Nigeria, and we're waiting for them. But you see, I want to take the opportunity to sound a clear warning to all humanitarian organizations, to all the human rights fighters, that no government will fold its arms and allow fake news to destroy it. So when we start taking appropriate action, we hope there will be no complaints from any quarters.
Minister of Information, Alhaji Lai Mohammed. Meanwhile, the National Center for Disease Control has appealed to Nigerians to adhere to the physical distancing advice. This is coming after many state governments said they were relaxing the restriction imposed to help contain the spread of the virus because of the Easter celebration this weekend. The NCDC Director General, Dr. Chike Ihekwazu, who admitted to being a Christian himself, however, pointed out that many of the gains will be reversed if the restrictions were lifted.
I can bet it's not easy for any Nigerian because we are a socially intense people. We live on social interactions. We are known across the world for our music, our dance, our drama. We hold our religious gatherings very dear to our heart. And there's no weekend more important for Christianity than this weekend. There's no weekend that Christians are called upon to come together more than this weekend. So there's no weekend this will be hardest for us, the Christians among the Nigerian population, than this weekend. So I really call on all of us, Nigerians, Christians, Muslims, and whatever other religion that you have, to remember we need to pay a short-term price for a long-term goal. And physical distancing is probably the most important tool. So whether we talk about wearing of masks, whether we talk about interruption of mass gatherings, whether we talk about any of the other interventions that we have suggested, we're trying to achieve the same thing, to limit the distance that we have from each other, between ourselves, to about 2 meters. Because from everything we understand about the virus today, it's not the opportunity of transmitting from one individual to the other is made a lot more difficult if we have sufficient distance between us. And we have also learned that from this virus that there are people that carry this virus without presenting symptoms. But critically, the most important thing is that people can be infectious 2 days before the symptoms appear. We call it the pre-symptomatic phase. So while everybody has been talking about the asymptomatics, the most important is the pre-symptomatic. So people that have become infected will become symptomatic, but don't know yet because they're in a few days before that has happened. And that is why we have to increase this distance between us.
Director General of the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, Dr. Chike Ihekwazu. And the federal government has assured that all pilots and the passengers of Caverton helicopters arrested in River State will soon regain their freedom. That's according to the Minister of Aviation, Hadi Sirika. He was speaking during the daily briefing by the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 today.
The pilots were carrying out national assignment because the speech and address by the SGF, who is the chairman of the task force, and the presidential address exempted oil and gas from the lockdown or shutdown in national interest. And these Caverton helicopter pilots were flying into the military base for national assignment. His Excellency, the governor of River State, ought to know if the exempted Caverton flight will be landing in the military base in Port Harcourt, belonging to Nigeria Air Force. He does not need to know. The pilots will soon be released, will be secured, and there will not be any conviction hanging on their necks.
And now we can get more on some of the stories from our correspondent, Kayla Megwa, who joins us from our Abuja studios. Good evening, Kayla. First, the issue of Friday services. From the reports, we understand that many of these services were online.
Absolutely, Ladi. A lot of the churches in the nation's capital who marked Good Friday today did that online. Well, we happened to be at the Our Lady Queen of Nigeria Pro Cathedral in Abuja, and while they were streaming online. So what they did was the service was going on, and just the church staff were present in the church. And then, of course, they had the media team there trying to send the visuals out to everyone who can watch it on TV and online as well. So we're there when we're watching the Good Friday Mass, and it was really sad, you know, but just a wake-up call as to the impact that COVID-19 has had on religious institutions. Good Fridays, for Catholics especially, is one of the most important days of the year. It is the one day in the year when Catholics don't observe Mass, but it is the day that commemorates the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. So it's one of those days where people look forward to the traditions that happen on that day. There's the kissing of the cross, there's, you know, the processions that go on around the place. You know, there's the Stations of the Cross that happens. You know, it's the final Stations of the Cross for the Lenten season. So it's a lot of traditions that happen on this day, and it was really sad, you know, to watch the service go on there. And no, of course, no one is allowed to have gatherings anymore. So it was sad to watch how sparse it was, and of course, not even just in Abuja, even watching online, watching Pope Francis, you know, celebrate Good Friday on. We could watch it only online, and it was just him. It was really sad to see, but it is the reality that we live in, Laddie. This is the new normal, and Good Friday is here. We were worried about this weekend to see how compliance was going to be for the Easter weekend. And interesting, someone must have listened to us yesterday, Laddie, because today the lockdown in the nation's capital is serious today. The whole of Kubwa, Lugbe, all the highways really were very tight today. People were stopped. It was a joint effort. I saw VIO, I saw the police, I saw the military even, you know, stopping people, and, you know, if they're not providing essential services, they were asked to turn back. And we're not just doing that on the highways, we're checking businesses. I saw a particular cafe in Gwarimpa, and, you know, I was looking to see what was going to happen, because that place usually is notorious for sneaking in people and, you know, having like little things there, here and there. And so I was watching today, and I saw the task team show up at that particular cafe in Gwarimpa and get them to stop what they were doing, you know, ordered people to leave and whatnot. So the compliance level today has been very tough. We're watching to see how Easter Sunday goes, Laddie.
Indeed, but do I take it then that the compliance level in terms of what we've been reporting all week tended to improve this Friday?
the compliance level, let's get this straight, laddie. The compliance level didn't improve. The security agents became tighter. Remember, that was what we said yesterday. We said the security agents were lenient with people who were flaunting these rules openly. We saw it in the report yesterday in Karu, and we saw people driving around the city center, especially the suburbs. We could see a lot of people breaking the sit-at-home rule. So it's not that the compliance level increased today. It is that the security agents tightened their belts today, did a joint effort, and I think people might actually adhere to the sit-at-home order this weekend, but we're watching to see how it goes, especially on Easter Sunday.
All right, thank you very much. Our correspondent, Kayla Megwa, reporting from our studios in Abuja. Thank you very much, Kayla. And talking about updates, let's go from Kayla in Abuja now to Ibadan in Oyo State, where Bukola Oriewo is. I understand that Buki is not yet ready. We'll take that in the course of the bulletin. Let me come to our studios here, where Dr. Yinka Adeniro, consultant public health physician, is here. Good evening, Doc.
Good evening, Mr.
Welcome. Here we are, Easter weekend upon us. First, your assessment of this containment process, the lockdown, as some people have chosen to call it. How do you assess that?
Yeah, generally, I think it's not that effective as far as I'm concerned. It's still a partial lockdown as far as I'm concerned, because in certain areas, people are restricted quite well. In some certain areas, some people are not restricted. For example, I was coming in this evening. A lot of people are already going out, you know. So the lockdown is a mixed feelings for me.
So in that respect, the overall objective of containment may not record the kind of success that those of you in the medical practice were anticipating.
Yeah, I mean, it's still better than nothing. I mean, we cannot go away from the fact that there is a partial lockdown to a large extent. I mean, in so many areas, people are quite restricted. But so for me, it's still better than nothing. And then if we can keep improving on it, I'm going to be happy with that.
Now, taking it from where it is now, some people have they've talked to the issue of coordination, that while some places are locked down, as you pointed out, some others, but not just within geographic boundaries now, say, of states, but that right across the country, while some people are locking down, other people are relaxing, and then vice versa.
I mean, that's another problem. I mean, we had, I saw a press release or a document from Castina, and then another one from Kogi, where they are relaxing the lockdown, the restrictions. I mean, that's also dangerous as far as I'm concerned. I think we should consult our efforts. All our efforts should be coordinated now. And then the little gain that we are having, we shouldn't lose that. So people should be well advised. Our authorities should be well advised. Let's watch things. I mean, we cannot overemphasize the impact of the lockdown, and then I would like to call it the reason why we are locking down. So it's very, very important for them to be aware of this, and then listen to their health authorities. I mean, there are a lot of factors. We have social factors. We have other economic factors playing in. I mean, a whole lot of problems. But, I mean, we have to look at it. We don't want to run into problems with the disease. And then we're also battling with a lot of other problems. So we have to weigh it and then listen to health authorities and then take necessary precautions. I think it's important for this lockdown to be more tighter than what we're currently having. So
now, again, another thing that is currently happening is that the president, having been briefed now, he was briefed earlier today by the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19. And on the basis of that briefing, he is to make up his mind as to whether or not to extend this lockdown, and if so, whether to make it a national one as opposed to just a few states, which is what it was up until now. If you were in a position to advise him, knowing from where we're coming from, what would you be advising?
I've thought over it. I mean, like I told you, it's quite difficult. A lot of people are complaining about the lockdown. People are already tired, but we can't get tired now. We have to pay that price a bit. Okay, so my advice is this. we are still seeing new cases, okay? It's up and down. I mean, the last time we had 22, I think yesterday it was 14.
Right.
And so we are still seeing new cases. And so our curve is still going up. Or, I mean, it's like that. So we cannot really predict the movement now. So my advice would still be to, even if it is 1 week, okay, to allow the lockdown to still stay and then watch how things will play out as we move along.
Now, just before we take the break, maybe you can quickly address it. How about the contact tracing part of this?
Okay.
Because that part of what the lockdown was supposed to achieve was that.
Yeah.
How far do you think they've gone with that?
Yeah, I mean, we had, Lagos State started the house-to-house kind of contact tracing on Monday, and I think they are making progress. I don't know. I know we have a lot of challenges in terms of contact tracing. We have so many people to follow through and to look for. So, I mean, we have to keep doing more. We have to keep. So Lagos State is trying. I don't know about other states, how well they are doing, because, you know, the cases are going wider.
16 states now.
So it's 16 states. So I don't know how far they are going with. I mean, but Lagos State is showing a lot of leadership, and we can actually do more. So let's see. They said they want to test run it for 2 weeks. So let's see how they will be able to move with that.
Okay.
So we need to do more in terms of contact tracing. We need to do more in terms of testing. I mean, that's another issue that...
We'll come to that right
okay.
after this break.
Yeah.
Dr. Yinka Adeniran is still going to be in the house with us, but that will be after this break. Please stay on with us.
German Chancellor Angela Merkel says the situation...
Thanks for staying tuned. Welcome back to the COVID-19 special program. I've still got Dr. Adeniran in the house. But before we continue with the discussion, let's go to Bauchi, the capital of Bauchi State, where Hajara Aliyu has an update on the situation there, particularly the issue of figures of cases from that state. Hajara.
In Bauchi State, one of the issues that has dominated the media space in the last 24 hours is the variance in the number of confirmed coronavirus cases in Bauchi State. The NCDC has reviewed the number of confirmed cases from 8 to 6 and has apologized to the Bauchi State government. But the government still maintains that there are only 4 confirmed cases in Bauchi State. 2 other cases are undecided, and the issue, we understand, is still being sorted out with the NCDC to determine whether those 2 cases actually belong to Bauchi State or not, because the addresses do not carry Bauchi State. Hopefully, we expect that to be reconciled by tomorrow. In the midst of this mix-up, laboratory for the detection of COVID-19 is in the offing. One of the experts at the forefront of the project is here with me, Professor Sani Malemi. Why does Bauchi need the laboratory at this time, and when would it come on stream?
Yeah, thank you very much. As you know, the strategy for containing the COVID-19 pandemic basically consists of 3 approaches. The first, as you know, is isolation. The second is testing, and then of course, the third strategy is the community measures which have been put in place in very many places. Now, testing does not exist in Bauchi and, I dare say, in the whole of northeastern Nigeria at the moment. And this is a big threat because already we are seeing the increasing number of cases, principally in Bauchi State, and from all projections, the numbers are going to increase in most of the states of Nigeria in the coming weeks. And so there is apprehension on the part of the scientific and medical community that the testing facilities are inadequate to be able to cope with the expected increase in the numbers that need to be tested. So we're working through quite a large number of possible funders, ranging from the state government itself to the university, the teaching hospital, to institutions, local and international, to see how we can rapidly set up this laboratory, and we are getting a lot of positive responses. So we are hoping that in a matter of 2 or 3 weeks, we should be able to have our feet on ground and running.
That's the update we have from Bauchi State for now. It's back to you in the studio. I'm Hajara Aliyu.
Thank you, Hajara. And back here, Dr. Yinka Adeniro, as I mentioned, is still here. Dr. Adeniro, now, before we took the break, you wanted to, talk about testing. One of the figures that people that tend not to get emphasized are the number of people who have been treated and discharged. The figures I have here indicate that so far 51 people have been treated and discharged. But that's a very small number from a very small base, which goes back to the issue of testing that you mentioned. What was it about the testing that it is that you wanted to emphasize?
Yeah, I mean, just like we know, part of the strategy to test, I mean, there are different strategies. We talk about social distancing. You talk about testing more so that you can look at more contacts, contact tracing, and then you can look at those contacts, those suspected cases, their contacts, and so on and so forth. So for different countries, they approach this, the control with different strategies.
Right.
So for Nigeria, we are looking at all the strategies. We are doing lockdown on one side, and then we should be doing a lot of testing too. I mean, currently, we have about 288 cases, confirmed cases.
As of today,
as at now. And then we've done about maybe 5,000 thereabout testing. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that is low. I mean, if you compare that to South Africa, that had their first case 1 week after Nigeria, they've done more than 60,000 testing. I mean, and I mean, you know the number of cases they've also been able to pick. They've been able to pick about 2,000 thereabout. So if we are able to test more, I know there are a lot of problems around testing. We are trying to improve on that. Currently, they say we have maybe about 10 testing labs. We need more. I mean, so you go to South Africa again. I'm just doing a comparison. I mean, so they have almost 60 testing labs. I mean, so they are doing more testing and they are picking more cases, much more than what we are currently doing here. So, I mean, the more you test, the more cases you'll be able to pick. And then the more contacts of those cases you'll be able to trace, and then we'll be able to contain better. So that's the aspect of testing I'm actually looking at.
Now, but we seem to be ramping up in some areas also. Yeah. Virtually every state now has at least one isolation center.
Absolutely.
People are building quarantine units and generally possibly trying to firm up, as it were, our response to this. Yeah. But there are some of your colleagues who have talked about that being the high-tech end, but that this is an opportunity for us to firm the basic end, which is that not everybody who has Qatar has COVID-19.
Absolutely.
Not everybody who is sneezing has COVID-19 and so on. But that how to address that part seems to still be left out in the general thinking.
Yeah, so, you know, before we get to isolation and then looking at treatment, so we know that about 80% of all the cases that you're able to pick will be mild cases. I mean, or asymptomatic. So asymptomatic to mild.
Right.
You will only have maybe about 15% that will need some form of hospitalization, and then about 5% that will need some of critical care. And so if we test more, and then we're able to pick those cases more, so they can some of them, the mild cases can self-isolate, and then, I mean, we can look at other contacts and then also advise them to quarantine themselves and so on and so forth. So we will be able to have relieve the healthcare facility or the healthcare infrastructure of being overwhelmed. Okay, so at this point, we want to put all our energy so that we don't get to the point where we're having a lot of bad cases and then that we will not be able to cope. Okay, so that's the reason why is at this point we should put all our energies so that we don't have an escalated situation.
Now, the medical personnel themselves, like yourselves, those who are, a lot of attention focuses on the victims, those who have COVID-19. But how about those who are treating COVID-19? There are points where we were hearing about a shortage of PPEs and other such things and so on. Do you have any idea if that situation has changed, has improved, and all of that?
Yeah, even though the government is making efforts, they are telling us that they are getting more PPEs and then try to encourage the frontline health workers. I think it is now that they can prepare. I mean, now that we have few cases, and then we are not yet overwhelmed, as it were, we can prepare a lot now. I mean, if you look at the US, they're already running short of supplies.
Indeed.
Okay, so, I mean, that's because they didn't really prepare on time. I mean, so now we should make sure that we have all our supplies and prepare for the worst. I mean, that's the way I'm looking at worst case scenario. So prepare for the worst case scenario. Let's get a lot of those PPEs, and then let's encourage the frontline health workers. I mean, I I saw a video this morning, and it was quite disheartening that a minister will not know the kind of situation that the frontline health workers are going through, and then they are not quite encouraged. I mean, so if you are saying that doctors are just temperature screener and things, I don't think that is quite encouraging. So let's encourage our frontline healthcare workers. Let's applaud them. Let's motivate them. It's not everything is not just money. Appreciation is important, and then we can prepare them and then train them. It's not just giving them the PPEs. Okay, so we have a lot of cases now where health workers are testing positive.
In Benin,
in Benin,
and a number of other places.
So they are testing positive, and so we should look at that. I mean, that's the pointer. That's the tip of the iceberg. So we should look at that. What is it that is missing? So is it training? Is it the PPE? So we have to evaluate everything we are doing on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, and then keep adjusting as required. So, for the healthcare workers, those are the frontline soldiers, and then we cannot joke with that.
Now, Doc, let's take a break here and just go on to Ilorin in Kwara State, which incidentally is preparing for its own lockdown. Our own correspondent, Abdul Hakim Garba, who went out earlier in the day, brought back this update.
The whole of Kwara State is now in lockdown. This is coming barely 48 hours after our local government was placed on total lockdown as well. This became necessary after 2 confirmed cases of COVID-19 in our local government. The state deputy governor, who doubles as the chairman state COVID-19 committee, Kayode Alabi, announced the total lockdown at a news conference in Ilorin.
The government hereby bans all vehicular movements, including private vehicles. The only exceptions are commercial trucks carrying goods and services who would operate with absolute respect for social distancing and other COVID safety protocols. All kinds of shops, bars, pubs, and markets are hereby shut until further notice.
Following this announcement, there was panic buying among residents of the state who thronged market for local minute purchase.
Because we won't be able to go out to buy things, so we have no other choice than to come to the market to come and buy things to stock our house.
Because they said from tomorrow, from this night, by 6 o'clock, everybody will be in because of the sickness that is in this world.
Before now, the state has been on partial lockdown for 2 weeks to curtail the spread of COVID-19 to the state. But now that 2 cases have been confirmed, the state is now on total lockdown. Foodstuff markets and banks are now only to open on Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays between 10 in the morning and 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Kwara State now joins the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, Lagos and Ogun State, where total lockdown has been declared as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. From Ilorin, Abdul Hakim Garba.
Thank you very much, Abdul Hakim from Ilorin. Doc, our last moments here. Again, one of the things that the NCDC talked about, and which Abdul Hakim also mentioned there, is this issue of social distance, or what the NCDC has now changed to physical distancing. Which is the required space. We still seem to have a problem with this right across the country.
Absolutely.
The idea that people need to maintain this distance, and it is so critical.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, we are a social being generally, and then Nigeria is a highly social intense society. So it's going to take some time. I mean, so it's going to...
do we have that time?
Yeah, we don't. So we have to keep educating our people. We have to keep enlightening them. We have to keep educating them, you know, creating that awareness, you know, as much as possible in all the languages they can understand, and then keep engaging all the community leaders, all the stakeholders, so that at every point in time, they keep engaging their people. I mean, so, I mean, it's going to take a while, but we have to keep educating and enlightening the people. So if we do that over time, I mean, we'll get used to it. Yeah.
Now, but at this stage in time now, what are the things that must now be done? I've asked you about whether or not we should extend this, and you've given your view. But beyond just extending the lockdown, you talked earlier about the fact that there are several strategies that should be going on simultaneously.
Yeah.
Now, can you expand a little bit on some of those other strategies that need to now be either enhanced, intensified, or brought to the fore?
Yeah, I think one of the things we want to achieve with the lockdown is so that we don't have a lot of spread of the disease, so that we can contain as much as possible. And for you to keep people locked down, there must be some other help that you have to provide. I think we have to look at that, okay? Whatever we want to do, we have to look at, okay, for people to stay where we want them to stay, what are we putting in place? A lot of people are complaining about not getting anything at all, I mean, to stay at home. So if we want people to stay at home, how are we helping them to stay at home? And I mean, we know the kind of society where we are. A lot of people are daily earners, so we have to do. So I think that's one aspect that we have to look at. The other aspect, which I've talked about, is we have to increase our screening capacity. It's very, very important. Again, there are things that I've been thinking about, okay? So, for example, I saw an instrument from Lagos State trying to see how people, it's like a questionnaire that people can fill, self-screening tool kind of thing. So I think if we can leverage on technology to administer that, okay, leverage on technology in the sense that, okay, if you type this so-so code, and then you can, from your phones, you can pick those, and then we'll be able to sieve out people that we really need to follow after, okay? So if we can leverage on short code technology, SMS, mobile technology like that, or even if it is phone call, that you call a number and then they ask you certain questions. I'm talking about this automated kind of thing. More so that we're having a lot of pressure on the call center, NCDC call centers. You know, a lot of people complain that maybe they're not able to get through, and when they get through, they can't and so on and so forth. So we need to look at how we can leverage on technology. I mean, if you look at all this telecom, when you call their contact center, so I mean, like a machine will first talk to you, and then they will now direct you to a live customer service person. So we have to look at all those strategies so that we can get a lot of people screened
without them
physically coming, and then while we are going to them, we are also looking at all of that. So we need to look at that.
All right. Yeah. Thank you very much, Dr. Yinka Adeniran, consultant public health physician, has been speaking with us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being with us. Now, there's been an outcry over the inhumane treatment being meted out to Nigerians living in China by the Chinese authorities. A video that has gone viral on social media shows a Nigerian diplomatic official protesting the maltreatment to a Chinese government official. Let's take a look at that video.
The first 14 days is acceptable by us. Another 14 days, you didn't communicate to us that you are going to do another 14 days after 14 days. They have tested negative, and then they have given them the paper Why are they giving them another 14 days? That is one. Two, all the police, the documents, this passport belong to the federal government of Nigeria. In line with international practice, no any country have the right to seize the international passport of another country. Wait! They are not in my hand. I just withdraw it from them. They seize it. You have them. I said they seize it. And then you know, your deputy, the deputy general, all the passports of Nigeria they seized. Ask him. He was released yesterday. Why are they seizing Nigerian passport? It not belong to the China. If you seize Nigerian passport, it's like you are seizing Nigeria as a whole. It's not acceptable. That's another thing. The third one I'm going to tell you, you didn't communicate to us that you are going to go to all the Nigerian houses and then you are going to ask them to come out and go and quarantine them. Did you communicate to us? No. Nobody communicated to us. If you want to do your policy of 14 days, shut down everybody. Don't discriminate. Everybody, you sit at home.
All right, time for a quick break. We'll be back with more on that and others surrounding that story. Please stay with us. Thanks for staying tuned. And on our story, which we took before the break about the alleged maltreatment of Nigerians in China, the federal government has also conveyed its concerns over that issue to the Asian nations' authorities. During a media briefing in Abuja, the secretary to the government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, explains that the Chinese ambassador has been informed about Nigeria's position. He also assured Nigerians living in China about the government's commitment to their safety and welfare. And now let's go to Wuhan in China, which was the epicenter, the start of this COVID-19 pandemic. And there we are being joined by one of the Nigerians who has lived through this all this while. I'm talking of, okay, there he is. I'm talking about Mr. Adetunji Ayodeji Adetunji Idowu, I believe it is. Mr. Idowu, sorry, I got it a bit mixed up there. But thank you for joining us from Wuhan in China. First of all, many of your restrictions have been lifted now. You were under lockdown, those of you in Wuhan. What has it been like since the restrictions were lifted?
Thank you for having me. Good evening. The restrictions were lifted officially 2 days ago, after 76 days of being under lockdown. The lockdown itself was sequential. It didn't start just like that. They introduced it in phases, and also right now it is being lifted in phases. So I can say the lifting is partial, because what we have right now is you're only able to go out once in 2 days, just a single member of a household. So for example, yesterday I was able to go out to get some groceries, and then I won't be able to go out until tomorrow. I couldn't go out today. So that's what everyone in the city is still facing right now, except for the essential workers who are able to move freely. At the start of the lockdown, it was also like that. It was sequential. They first of all cut off the public transport, and then were able to go to the markets to buy things using bicycles. And then they allowed one member of the family to go out in 5 days. So that's how it's been since this whole thing started.
Now, of course, China has been reporting a downward trend. First, it started reporting a downward trend in the number of new infections, and then larger amounts of treatment. And then very recently, as recently as early this week, it reported no new cases and no further fatalities. So from where you are in Wuhan, would you describe that as a success and a good outcome to the sacrifice that you were put through, as you just described?
Absolutely, absolutely. That's a success. You know, the whole thing started from Wuhan, so the panic and all that was really felt here. So people are really relieved to know that there is no more incidents being recorded and no more fatalities. I don't have the exact number of people who died now, but we're just happy to know that no person has died. We still understand that there are some asymptomatic cases that are yet to be detected, and they are currently working on that. But for those who have symptoms and all that, that's been totally cleared completely. In fact, they celebrated the last person who was killed with a bit of fanfare. It was all over the media here in Wuhan.
Now, are there any lessons, you think, from your experience in Wuhan in China that Nigeria can take to heart as it deals with its own version of this pandemic here in Nigeria? Are there any lessons?
Yes. Yes, there are a few lessons. In fact, I've written the experience I've had here, so survival in a lockdown, lessons for Nigeria, and I've published that. But in terms of the response, because I also listened to the DG of the NCDC, I think that their response has been very good, and also the Lagos State government has also responded quite well. But that's one aspect of it. Where the challenge is with regards to the management of the lockdown. So there are some things that I think that probably we could adopt from what the Chinese people have done. For example, number one is the fact that it was introduced sequentially. I think that introducing that lockdown at a goal brought a lot of shock to the system in the country. So we could have done it in sequence, such that you still allow some form of movement, but everyone will know that we are in a lockdown. And then the idea of also having maybe one member of a family being able to go out to get things for the family is also very important until we're able to find a way to perfect logistics and supply of food to everyone. So that's also something that can be learned. The other thing, which is I also think is very important.
Because of our time, Mr. Ayodeji Adetunji, let me ask you this. Are you able to, I know you are still, as you pointed out, under some form of restriction, but when you go out, are you able to use the facilities, going to the subway, going to any supermarket you like, and so on? You don't have any problems with any of those at the moment?
Well, we really don't have any problem with that. If you can achieve that within 2 hours, that's the time frame for going out. Because currently you can only go out for 2 hours. Your time of going out is recorded, and then your time of coming in is recorded.
How about as a Nigerian? I mean, now speaking as a Nigerian.
Oh no, currently foreigners are not able to access public utilities or public facilities, so to say, in China for some reasons. Because of time, I may not be able to explain here. Because they have a sort of health code that captures the Chinese people, but they are not able to capture the foreigners. So I guess they try to prevent foreigners, not just blacks now, but all foreigners in China, from accessing those facilities for the meantime.
Okay. It's at that point that we're going to have to leave it. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Ayodeji Adetunji Idowu,
Thank you for having me.
Wuhan in China. Thank you very much. We've just got time to give you this news just in. The Nigeria Center for Disease Control, the NCDC, has announced 17 more cases, bringing the total number of confirmed COVID-19 cases in Nigeria to 305. The new cases are in 6 states plus the FCT. Lagos has 8 cases, Katsina has 3, the FCT has 2, Niger, Kaduna, Anambra, and Ondo states have 1 new case each. Again, the total number of confirmed cases of COVID-19 in Nigeria now stands at 305. That's the NCDC website on the screen there. And there, of course, you can see the total. The number of discharged patients has increased to 58, while the number of deaths still stands at 7. That's how we're going to wrap it up this Friday on our COVID-19 special for this hour. Thank you very much for joining us. I am Ladi Akre Doluale. Do have yourselves a good Easter ahead. Good night.